scientific introduction. Now let's move on to closing the hand by inviting the member of the government.
So, Mr. Speaker, we think on this side of the house, we don't deny the importance of literature or psychology. The problem at the moment is because university utilizing the limited resources in a very disproportionate manner. They invest too much money and human resources for the literature or this kind of stuff, and they fail to adapt themselves to the social needs and social demands, kind of like open OG implied, right? We on this side of the house, I want to talk about. So as a consequence that these kind of gap is actually makes students themselves disenfranchised firstly, but secondly also also we're going to talk about is also we think it's incentivize those students or those university students to like we're gonna empower students to actualize themselves. That's the stance of the closing. I'm going to talk about three things in my speech. Firstly, I'm going to talk about what the problem and the state school, and secondly, I'm going to talk about why this thing in the state school, the inequality between rich and poor students in job hunting is promoted. How can we collect it? And lastly, I'm going to talk about culture, because CEO kind of like concerning about the importance of culture. Lots of we think on our side of the house, we can give the ability for the student to monetize the kind of like culture or those kind of power society to adapt those kind of contents to society, and as a consequence that we can achieve better the protection of culture. Before that, a couple of rebuttal towers opening up. So all told us, like, they kind of like worrying about literature will be regarded as a waste of money or something like that. We wouldn't say this is a waste of money. The problem at the moment is balance of the utilization of money, because under state school, because in the name of the academia or the importance of freedom of study, like research or studying, this kind of university is regarded as exception, like they do not really need to be accountable for society. That's as a consequence that they are allocating too much money for the literature or culture, philosophy, whatever. But because the problem at the moment is there's no mechanism to hold the university accountable. So that under our model, we can strike the balance. We can invest more money for the business ability or people the kind of ability required for job hunting, and you can use the rest money for those philosophy. It's not really meaning the expansion of those kind of things. They talked about why the creative person is not regarded as stupid, whatever is problematic. But the problem is that they haven't shown us what kind of mechanisms they can solve. This is the status quo, right? They haven't shown us any kind of mechanism to solve that problem if they call it a problem. So I'm going to talk. So then we'll go to our extension. First about why actually it's the problem. Those kind now in the current system is to promote inequality between rich and poor, and why that's problematic. The first thing we'd like to point out is that the problem at the moment is the university didn't give you any kind of meaningful ability or skills for job hunting, right? So even if, and also problem two levels. The first, because those people are meaningfully informed, right? Because those kind of faculty is divided almost equal basis, almost the same number for the faculty of literature or psychology, whatever. As a consequence that the students are somehow informed that you don't need to for the preparing for this for becoming a member of society. As a consequence, these people always delay, even if the vast majority of students have to do job hunting, have to be working as a business person after graduation. But we think that's problematic. But secondly, also we think it's actually promoting inequality. What do you mean by that? As I told you, right, the university has given meaningless skills for job hunting. As a consequence of that, even if there is a demand for that kind of ability, the university don't fulfill that law. That as a consequence, those kind of law is alternated by the business field, right? Now we can see lots of what is called sugar business, so that only rich people can access to gain that kind of ability in the first place. But as a consequence, what's happening is that the rich people are more accessible to the better company and better company, right? Better information and a better preparation and more choices for job hunting. On the other hand, given that all poor people have only only be able to access to university as a kind of educational institution, those poor people have do not have any meaningful way to preparing for the job hunting. As a consequence, many of the poor people cannot get any job in the worst case scenario. As a consequence, those poor people are committing suicide at the worst case scenario, right? Because they are regarded as meaningless for society, whatever. So as a consequence of that, we think what we're gonna tell you is that actually, even though there's a social demand for job hunting or that kind of ability, like your business skill or logical thinking, or communication, whatever, but because university don't fulfill that role, as a consequence, we think that many poor students are disenfranchised. We think that is problematic. Why? Because the lower public funding is essentially to collect the gap between poor and rich, to give the equal opportunity, the equal access for those, every single individual, the access to that kind of choices. But in the status quo, those kind of money is not utilized for the vast majority of students who actually going to the job hunting, right? We think that is problematic. We think that public funding should be utilized to collect that gap. As a consequence, we think empower the lowest class of students. Yes.
So I don't think that poor, just because you're poor, this doesn't mean you are extremely so stupid that you have no ready for job interview, no ready for the society. If they have even though in the current finance is small, they have enough motivation for the society, motivation to move in the society. Why they're so stupid in the current part?
We don't say that stupid. Like stupidity is not right, because actually, in the reality, job hunting need preparation. You need kind of information how to prepare and how to prepare for an interview and how to train your on logical thinking, whatever. It's just not achievable in the university education. That's the problem we see, and as a consequence of that, we think that's problematic. The secondly, more important about the culture, they tolerate feminists or something like that. We think that feminists, feminists are like culture and etc. The problem is that even under their proposals, they can't protect culture in the first place because both sides agree on, because they don't deny the capitalist system. As a consequence of that, in order to protect the culture in the reality in the capitalist society, we need to monetize those culture, right? But even under status quo, those students love this kind of culture. They don't have a way to appeal to society. But under our proposal, because giving the kind of opportunity to kind of business skills, they can know about how to marketing, how to market certain topics, in order to local topics like whatever, how to monetize agriculture in local area, how to targeting the foreigners, for instance, if you try to monetize it in sightseeing business, for instance, this kind of ability is achievable on our side, but under their proposal, right, under their model, those people do not have any meaningful way to do so, right? They just focusing on one specific areas they are studying, and they never have incentive and ability to associate that field towards society. This is a problem we see on the side of house. That's why we say the culture is important. Our side is better protecting those cultures. For those reasons, we are very proud to propose.
My argument of the document is like to invite member of
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, opening half mainly talked about whether which should be prioritized, the social benefit or the rights of the students to pursue their interests. And as the closing opposition, we are very happy to explain that why, in the long term, it is more beneficial for the whole society by keeping the varied study in the university, so that they can avoid the future risk or so forth and contribute to the sustainability. That's why we are very happy to oppose. So I will explain 2 points. So firstly, I'll explain that why the government should keep the varied study in the university in order to protect the sustainability of the society. And secondly, I'll explain that why university should be the independent from the government so that the people's happiness will be assured more. Before that, let me have some rebuttals to the whole government side. So firstly, they said that the assumption of the opening government is that the value of the society can be represented by the money, so the benefit should be the criteria. But it is not true. So we think that there are other metrics existing. So for example, about the culture or spirituality, those kind of things cannot be evaluated by money. However, for example, in the case of religion, if the religious activities in many studies or so forth will be prosper, then the people who believe that religion will feel greater happiness because they can improve their spirituality. But those kind of things will not contribute to the social monetary benefit. So under that situation, we think that the monetary measure should not be the only criteria of the happiness of the whole society. So we think that any kind of study should be assured in the university because it will contribute to the various kind of the happiness in the society. So, and secondly, they said that the students can learn the studies in a private school, so it is not a problem. But we don't think so. So because the private schools are also having incentive to reduce certain kinds of the study because they are also prioritizing the employment so that the many students can be attracted, because if they graduate from that private school, then they can have more possibility to be employed by the famous companies or so forth. Under that situation, the religious study or history will be reduced even in the private school. Under that situation, we think that the public university should protect those kind of study. So thirdly, we think that no, thank you. I skipped that. So let me move on to my first point. So why the government should keep the varied study in the university? It is because for the government it is difficult to estimate the future demand of human resources. So in the first phase, the human resources demand of human resources is often changed because the improvement of technology or the change of the demand of science, human resources, or so forth. So for example, in the case of genetic engineering, a few decades ago, it is not seen as the useful study, but now it is greatly improved and it is contributing to the medical technology or so forth. So the demand of human resources is often changed. Or other cases, for example, the international relationship issues or so forth. So the few decades ago, the religious or history studies are not popular, but recently those kind of study is necessary in order to analyze the background of the ISIS or international relation conflicts or so forth. Under that situation, no thank you. The demand of human resources is also changed. But however, the government cannot estimate the change so easily because its capacity is already limited. The government is made of the political people, so they do not know about the science, or they tend to see only the monetary benefit in the short term or so forth. And even if the government create the committee, they cannot estimate fully because there is not the all representative of the each study included, and after taking this proposal, there will be less representative from small studies. So under that situation, the government cannot estimate the change and cannot be flexible to the change of the demand of human resources. And so under the status quo, we think that actually the government and the whole society have the flexibility to the demand of society, and it's contributing to the sustainability of the society because it keeps all the studies in the university. So the certain amount of people keep the studying, so the genetical engineering are improving and so forth. Yes.
Okay. If the demand of the feminism, philosophy, or communism increase, we just increase on our side of that. Why this kind of the continue to equalize seat is fundamentally necessary on your side?
That is because the fixing the ratio is too late. There is a time that is a too late cases. So I'll explain that a few later. So that's why under the status quo, the society is flexible to the demand of the whole society and can contribute to the benefit for the whole society. But after taking this proposal, that is not continued, right? Because the society cannot be flexible to the demand of the human resources because some studies are already reduced and the human resources is not enough when it is needed. So for example, so some things are unpopular now, so the professors are cut off or the students are already cut off and there will be less technology to improve. And under that situation, if some regions are improving now, then there will be a high possibility that other country can improve that technology, but our countries cannot improve that technology. Under that situation, it is really problematic and beneficial for the whole society. That's why we are very happy to host. Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to call the government.
Ladies and gentlemen, closing opposition has taught us is actually rather we can actualize this kind of the cultural development in the society because in under the status quo, because these academic researches or cultures or these religions or so forth actually is conducted inside of a high society very skillful researchers and so forth. Therefore, we need to trickle down. We need to connect it to the economy and activate it, and we need to. Therefore, we happy to propose a motion. So we need to talk about many two issues. Firstly, how under the status quo, why this culture is actually marginalized. Culture is actually marginalized. Rather, after taking proposal under our model, we can activate this local economy or local cultures or religions, this kind of academy. Why is it rather beneficial for that kind for researchers? And second, how student John Hunter is suffering right now, and opportunity division is actually created under status quo. How the under model we can rectify this kind of opportunity division. So moving on first, how culture is actually dominated by the academic skillful people. So we believe under the current situation, people because so what the closing opposition has told us the cultural development or religious development is necessary for need to consider international relationship and so forth. Firstly, that's not necessary. That's not necessary. That's not uniquely necessary for under their model, because the cultural development researches or cultural development necessary or this academy, this research is not so much expensive cost for compared to engineering or this social practice or so forth, because this mechanics or this engineering need a massive investment for instrument or like massive investment for instrument. Therefore, even under their paradigm, the cultural development researchers can develop and so forth. That's why that's not so much unique. And second, the opening opposition told us the leader of opposition has told us like poor student cannot like study in university in like about like the cultural religion and so forth. But firstly, that has already opening government has pointed out that the scholarship, the government already providing this kind of poor individual in the first place. Second, even if this assumption is true, after taking proposal, this high-level university like Tokyo University or Kyoto University, this kind of university will be exposed in like job hunting competition. Therefore, all kind of people, all individuals in the university will be exposing competition. This is no division. This totally equal. No, thank you. So, moreover, the deputy leader of the opposition has told us we are happy to learn about other knowledge also like logical communication or like job interview skill and so forth. But firstly, because students have strong interest for like this research and so forth, therefore they do not have incentive to actively study about communication, learn about the communication skill and logical communication and so forth. Therefore, that's not so much meaningless. No, thank you. So, and moreover, my partner has told us like in terms of job hunting. In terms of job hunting skill, that's necessary because like the private sector is actually monetizing like and dominating like the how to and how to no thank you how to do that like the job interview or logical communication and so forth. Therefore, the poor people cannot access to that kind like skill and so forth. Therefore, we believe the strong the public funded in the university is necessary because every individual student can go to the university as long as they are university. Therefore, after taking proposal, the government. The university much more likely to provide the opportunity to study about how to do that, like job hunting and so forth. So therefore, much people can get a job. Yes, okay.
So we told you all research has the possibility to be spin off. For example, development for outer space make robot arm and it is used for medical treatment, or psychology is used for making a strong AI.
Yes.
Why you can diminish all possibility for that?
Yes, but firstly, we can visually understand what kind of study will be much more possible to be spin off. And moreover, my partner told us, moving on second argumentation, my partner already told us, in terms of like culture or like the subject, those kind of culture or academic research should be connected to the capitalism or economy in a society. Because, for example, because people have a strong interest to earn money, to earn the money. For example, like people can activate people who have knowledge about like local economy, local culture, can activate a local economy and earn the money. Therefore, this business opportunity will activate and like spread the culture toward like to a society. That's why we believe our side is much more better to spread the culture and development of society. Therefore, we propose a motion. Thank you.
Thank you for the explanation, like implies opposition of the business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Two issues in my summary speech. First, how the money should be used, how tax money, should be used, especially in the context of tertiary university education. And second issue, which policy is better for social utility? So first of all, how should tax money be used? Because the main contention coming from the government team was that allocation of tax money should be prioritized on field that has practical merits and field that we can expect certain monetary return. And what we gave you from the opposition was two critical responses to that. The first response that we gave you was that allocation of tax money is not equivalent to monetary investment, right? We allocate tax money in various fields regardless of the expected monetary return. For example, we spend a lot of money, tax money, on policies such as affirmative action policy, regardless whether there are actual practical monetary returns attached to it. We spend tax money to protect employment on rural areas by spending tax money to protect like rural rice farmers, even if that has very poor returns. So if a field is socially popular, or if a particular field has a lot of demand from the public, the government or the public there's no need for us to spend tax money to protect that particular field, because private market would be enough to invest that. Tax money should be used especially on fields which are not publicly popular, which the market cannot evaluate in terms of monetary returns, especially as we mentioned on fields such as cultural returns or artistic returns, or returns such as in case of employment. And this is where my partner grounded down this principle into this particular motion, because private schools already takes this policy, right? Private schools already reduce enrollment in field which have poor employment rate, because they are private. They care about profit, they care about student number, and they care about enrollment rate. So their response in saying that even if we take this policy, our problem will not exist because private schools will do this is not an adequate enough response, because private school has already taken this policy. They want a lot of students to they want high enrollment rate, and they tend to focus on things such as economics or things such as engineering. And that is precisely the reason why it should be the government, or it should be the public tax money that should be used to protect this particular field. Not yet. But the second response that we gave you was that employment or money is not the only value that society recognizes and that society appreciates. For example, when the Department of Religion discovers a new religious text or comes up with a new religious interpretation of a religious text, that has big impact to people's spirituality around the globe. Even though we cannot transfer that value into monetary value, we still recognize that to be a very big impact and value to the entire world. When the Department of History discovers a new historical fact, such as evidence of Japanese imperial government's responsibility when it comes to like Korean comfort women, that has a lot of impact to Korean people's historical identification and probably a lot of political impact to Japan and Korea. So we cannot just prioritize value that has monetary value. We think that there are other values that we cannot transfer to money that the society already recognizes, and therefore tax money should also be used in allocating and protecting that particular field. Moving to the second issue, not yet. Which paradigm is ultimately better for the society? Because what we hear from the affirmative, the government team, is that public universities needs to answer to public demand because we spend tax money. Now, firstly, what we say is that we would probably agree to a certain extent that universities, yes, should and probably already does answer to public demand. And this is where the closing opposition extension was particularly important in today's debate, was that we can't just think about the demand existing right now. It's also very important for universities to expect future public demand, not yet, and prepare for future demand, which the society still does not recognize yet. And that is called innovation. And in order to have these kind of practical innovation, we need basic research. We need investment in students in practical research. For example, as a consequence of having some innovation in the field of philosophy, which they they try to undermine in this policy. By having innovation in philosophy, that could lead to certain innovation on political philosophy, which can also impact on how the government allocates its tax money, and other practical policy which will impact the society. And demands of feminism, as I mentioned in my point of information, was not popular in the 1950s because the society still did not recognize that demand existing. The demand was invisible during that area, but the demand still existed. And as a consequence of feminist scholars' studies and research, long study and research, that research materialized into a whole new movement which changed the society. Even though it didn't have monetary value, that has social value that the society already recognized. Before we move on, opening.
Okay, we admit we don't know the future demand, but why can you just ignore the current clear and tangible demand from the society?
We are not ignoring current tangible demand. Therefore, we're not that is why we're not prioritizing one way or another, because we accept that there are demands that it is quite clear and that we have to recognize and we have to invest, and that is why we have the field of engineering or those practical field. But we have to also focus and spend a lot of money on in practical research, because we cannot expect for future unclear invisible demand. And the second response that my partner gave you was that trend of public demand, not yet, and this is very important, the trend of public demand necessarily changes. And the example that she gave you was in terms of genetic engineering. And the response coming from the opening government was, in point of information, was that we can adjust the number of enrollment flexibly by taking this policy and adopt to changing social demand. And my partner explained to you that that's not enough, because there's a critical problem of timeline gap. It would take years for us to prepare enough number of genetic engineers, and as a consequence of that timeline gap, Japan will probably lose competition against other countries, or we will not be advantageous in that field compared to if we had invested a lot of seats and a lot of students and money in the field of genetic engineering. But second of all, there's a harm to individual, right? Because if in their policy, let's assume, sit down, there's a lot of demand for genetic engineers right now. And as a consequence of taking their policy, they spend a lot of money and they incentivize a lot of students to go in the field of genetic engineers. What happens if 10 years from now, 10 years in the future, the demand of genetic engineers suddenly goes down because of certain incidents? As a consequence of that, all of those students who were allured by the government to go into this particular field will necessarily lose this job. So in terms of individuals, since future demand is quite unclear, and they gave us no mechanism or reason why government's expectation of future demand is always correct. As a consequence of that, we cannot, in terms of individuals' employment or individual happiness, we cannot adjudicate this motion by taking in terms of that field. So for both of those two reasons, we think the closing opposition will take this round.